Sports science and data analysis have been dominating athletics for years. Everybody wants to know the secret sauce for predicting athletic performance. But what if the secret is way easier than we think and you can predict your next PR from the comfort of your own home? I'm gonna show you one of the best ways that you can measure your explosiveness and your physical preparedness, and we're gonna start right. Do you wear a smartwatch? I wear too, not sponsored. But one of the awesome things about smartwatches is that they can give you a whole bunch of really unique info around your training. They'll even give you things like HRV. Comment down below if you want us to do a whole video on HRV. And that can help you understand how you're handling your overall training. Now, the big aspect here is that can they actually help predict when you're gonna hit that next PR? I think a smartwatch is a valuable tool. However, I don't think it's as effective as doing a regular vertical jump test. Now, one of the things that you can do with athletes is see what they're doing on a regular basis with their vertical jump. One, this is gonna help you teach the athlete how to increase their technique when they're doing a vertical jump. Two, you're gonna be able to see what type of shape they're in. Now, we're fortunate here where we have a vertical jump mat. So we just jumped 28.4. Boom! 29.5, good. One thing you can do if you don't have access to a mat is you can actually use these Post-it notes, okay? So we can get a Post-it note set up directly from Uline, not sponsored, and I can go on a wall here, and I can think about jumping, tapping here, boom, okay? So let's say that's attempt 1. Attempt 2, we get set. Oh, a little bit higher. So then you can measure that and you can see set up on the wall, okay, this is how high that actually is. If you don't want to use this, you can get set in a place where we're going to use chalk, even though we have a white wall, and go here, boom, and see where you're touching. The biggest factor here is that if we do this on a daily basis, we're going to get feedback, good, neutral, from our athletes that shows us how they're feeling, how they're recovering, what they did the day before, what they did 2 days before, what they did 3 days before, how that compound stimulus has led to specific types of adaptations or delayed specific types of adaptations. That's the biggest positive behind doing that daily vertical jump. And some of you guys might be saying, well, what about our upper body? And that's where we can even use something like this. Here, boom, boom. And you can test your explosive push-up, 16.2. Now, if we use this number, we can see when we feel like crap, how are we actually performing? When we feel strong or explosive, how are we actually performing? Oftentimes, athletes might come in and be like, oh, I'm sluggish, I don't feel that good. And then after a decent warm-up, they start to feel super twitchy. So this is a good indicator of where we're at, and they can actually change that mindset on a regular basis. But why a vertical jump test? If the athlete can come into the gym and actually perform some type of test that shows their ability to express impulse, it shows their neural explosiveness or their neurological speed, that test is going to be something that's phenomenal. Now, take for example, executing a muscle snatch, okay? So if I get in position here, this is a technical movement, but it's relatively easy and it's going to show you where you're at as far as that neurological speed. Here, I want to stay flat-footed, boom, okay? That's a fantastic way to see where your athletes are in regards to their overall adaptations. But compared to the muscle snatch, the vertical jump test is quite a bit easier, especially because of the time limitations. We can put a large amount of athletes through the vertical jump test in about 10 seconds. Now, is this scientifically proven or peer-reviewed? Not really, but we've used methods of science to try and set this up. And so what we've done is we'll come in, we'll get our athletes warmed up, we'll try to get them through the very same warm-ups each specific day of their training. So if they're on a leg power day or an athlete day, they're gonna do the same type of workout as their previous athlete day. If they're on that impulse day, they're gonna be doing the same warm-up as that impulse session from the previous week. So we're gonna warm them up as effectively as possible, and then they're only going to get 2 attempts on the vertical jump. Oftentimes, your athletes are gonna wanna have 3 or 4 attempts, but the issue there is that it can become fatiguing. Now, there is a little bit of a technical component behind this. Some athletes, and I would recommend for like the first week or two, don't say anything about their counter movement, okay? So some athletes will take a counter movement where they squat super deep. Other athletes will figure out that if they take a shorter, quicker dip, they might get a better response. And that's also going to play a role in how you can look at the athlete, how you can figure out aspects of their training and where you need to improve their twitchiness. To top it off, the vertical jump work barely adds any fatigue as long as they're not doing 3 or 4 or 5 different tests, okay? One other aspect is that oftentimes when you're not in the room, the athletes might have a little competition and you catch them doing 5 to 10 and they're trying to compete against one another. That's where you will see some fatigue from the test. So how does the vertical jump fit into the schedule? How is the test actually placed in regards to the warm-up? It should go after the warm-up. Now, just like I mentioned, every single day that you're training, if you've got a leg power day, if you've got an upper body power day, you have an athlete day, you have an impulse day, maybe a hypertrophy day. The big factor here is that based off of the day, we should be doing virtually the exact same warm-up as the prior week. And this is going to show us any idiosyncrasies from week to week based off of the athlete's adaptation. So from the warm-up, we should be testing the vertical jump. Oh! Damn it! And we only get a max, again, of 2 attempts. The problem is the ego is the big factor here, and everybody's gonna wanna take way more attempts, even way too many attempts while filming a YouTube video and delaying the process of filming a YouTube video because it's fun to compete against yourself. Boom! 28-2 trash! The interesting part is that the vertical jump work is going to be graphed on a line, so it's pretty easy to see any drop-offs or increases. It's also very easy to just capture the data. You can start to see a picture emerge. You can start to see that accumulation of volume. Your watches, both of these, will do this to a point, but they're not gonna see this specific performance. They're not gonna see the entirety of the training system and how that's gonna have a positive impact on your overall daily choice. You can start to see a daily picture. You can start to see a picture in its entirety emerge, and that in turn can lead to whatever you're trying to accomplish within training. If you're trying to peak them, see how they jump after a couple days of rest over the weekend. If you're trying to really put more volume on them, make sure that you're aware of any substantial increases in those working sets. Now, one aspect here that I'm gonna share with you is that we had Taiji Leach. He just prepared for his pro day. He came to us at week 1 and he had a 28.6 vertical jump. He also had a depth drop into a bound at 9 feet 1 inch. So over 62 days, this is what his chart looked like. It was up, it was down, it was up, it was down, it was up, it was down. On average, he was jumping around 31.5 inches on a daily basis. There was a couple points where he popped off and would get 33 high, low 34s. Then he would come back down to around 30 to 31 inches. But we knew in general, based off of those ups and downs, and the ebbs and flows, that once we got closer to his pro day, we knew he would take a little bit longer to recover, so we would start his taper quite a bit earlier. And that's what led him to jump 34.5 inches. The other interesting aspect here is that he went from jumping on our mat to jumping for a touch point, and he PR'd by jumping to that touch point at 34.5 inches. That's a 20.3% increase. Is this going to be realistic on a long-term basis that this is constantly going to be happening? Not really. One thing with Taiji is that he came in after a long football season. He came in after that bowl game. So we had to recognize that his test will be down in the beginning, but we can still see that improvement over that long period of time. If you want to get all fancy with an extra variable and get all white coat-like, you can start to test the individual athlete possibly after they start to do a specific movement. So let's say you want to do a clean, how well do they jump after clean? We want to do a back squat, let's see how well they can do a jump after a back squat. One interesting aspect along with our Taiji scenario is that we took Taiji for about 4.5 weeks and we did not have him do a single snatch. He had cleaned when he was in college, so all he had been doing was cleaning, and his vertical jump was just hovering around 30 inches. Nothing was happening. So I sat there as his coach, I'm like, all right, he needs to improve his impulse expression. he needs to understand how to go from that counter movement position and apply a massive amount of force in a short period of time. So I went back and I watched all the old garage strength YouTube videos on how to improve your vertical jump, and I remembered one of the big aspects was that if we put him in a position of a 2-box snatch, we would likely see an improvement in his performance. We removed all of the cleans and we brought in 2-box snatch twice a week. Now, what did we end up seeing? We saw that average from around 29 to 30 inches start to creep up. Within 3 weeks, he was consistently jumping 33 plus inches. Okay, literally just from one variable changing. So then you can piece that puzzle together based off of who they are, what they've done in the past, and what type of athlete they are to optimize their overall performance and a PR in front of the NFL scouts. But what else can a daily vertical jump tell us? The biggest things to look at is that vertical jump test is a great way to analyze readiness. It's a high speed test with a little bit of a technical component, and ultimately it's gonna show us how well that athlete's dealing with their fatigue or how well they're dealing with that training stimulus. So another cool part about the vertical jump test is that one, it's simple to do on a regular basis. You can get this done very, very quickly, and you can actually get a decent amount of athletes through the test in a short period of time. The other factor is that you won't see a huge drop off on a day-to-day basis. But if you start to see an athlete drop off, let's say 2, 3, 4 inches, you can back off of those specific lifts that you're doing. You can back off of the volume. Then the next thing is that if you see somebody who's really, really crushing it and they feel really, really strong, you can increase their intensity or potentially even increase their volume in that specific session. Just be aware that the next day when they come in, you might see a substantial drop off. It really depends upon the athlete. And then that's what's gonna help you peak these athletes very effectively. You're gonna be able to set up their peak so that they can have a 10 to 15% increase and ultimately set those monster PRs. Not having access to a coach who can help you with that periodization oftentimes can feel like a kick in the shin. You're just sort of throwing exercises against the wall and you're not really sure how to periodize that volume and intensity. Fortunately for you guys, you can head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, and you can download our strength training app, Peak Strength, for 5 free workouts in 1 free week. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.